It's time to step behind the scenes and take a closer look at the Owen Sound Attack. This is Bear Tracker Weekly. Here's your host, JC Coots.
Well, hello and welcome to episode 14, season 2 of the Bear Tracker Weekly podcast. It is our last episode before Christmas. The Owen Sound Attack are currently on their Christmas break, although it won't be a long one. In fact, they'll be back in action 1 week from today, the day that we're putting this podcast out, which is Sunday, December 21st. They're back in action at home on December 28th against the Brantford Bulldogs. But the Attack limp into the Christmas break, another 2 losses. It's a 6-game losing streak, falling on Wednesday night to the London Knights and then the Kitchener Rangers on Friday night. Break definitely well needed for the Owen Sound Attack. There are a number of injuries on the team right now, and also probably just good enough time to get away and take a break and then come back fresh towards the end of 2025. This week on the podcast, we're a little short on interviews just because I had planned to go to Kitchener on Friday night and get interviews after the game at the auditorium, but as you might know, the weather not great on Friday, so unfortunately I was not able to make the trip once again, stopped by the weather, which is why this week we only have the two. We've got David Bedkowski, the Owen Sound Attack captain, will join us, talk to him after the game Wednesday against London, and the Media Room Roundtable will get together. We've got Matt Hermiz along with Greg Cowan, Spencer Byers, and Michael Harris join me this week before that game against London on Wednesday night. So you'll hear both of those interviews this week. And then later on in the episode, I'll talk a little bit about this podcast as we look back on what's now been about a season and a half of the Bear Tracker Weekly podcast, kind of where we've come from, where we're going. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. But also maybe some ideas for 2026 and one idea that might involve you. We'll talk about that later on in the episode. But right now, let's get down to it. Episode 14 starts now. Well, earlier in the week, you might have noticed some comments made by head coach Scott Ray talking to Greg Cowan of the Owen Sound Sun-Times. Those comments appeared in an article in the Owen Sound Sun-Times where leadership of the group was kind of pointed out, and one of the direct quotes was, looking for leadership to take the bull by the horns. And that is something that David Bedkowski, as the leader of this team, took to heart. You probably saw that he let his play do the talking on Wednesday night. Some big hits, a fight, and just some fired up play from the captain against the London Knights. David had a few things to say after the game to both Greg Cowan and myself. Greg's article after the game against London is out now, and you can read those comments from David Bedkowski. When it came to interviewing after the game, I was up first and Greg was up second. So I got a very fired up David Bedkowski. And I don't often edit the interviews on Bear Tracker Weekly, unless, of course, one of the players or guests accidentally swears. That has happened before. I won't say who. But generally, you get the unedited versions of all the interviews. They're just straight from the horse's mouth right out to you. But in this case, I did edit out the question specifically where I asked David about his thoughts on the comments from the coaching staff, only because it was probably the rawest, most honest answer I ever got, but also he hadn't really had a lot of time to catch his breath after the game had ended. And I think if he was given a second chance, he might change the answer a little bit. And I think he was much better reflected in the article with Greg Cowan. So I will let that article and those comments speak for themselves. You can read that from Greg Cowan on the Owen Sound Sun-Times website. But here is that edited version of the interview with David Bedkowski from after the game against London on Wednesday night at the Bay Shore. David, first question just about the game tonight. It was a roller coaster. There were highs, there were lows for the Attack. Certainly tying it up and sending it to overtime was great. You get the point against the London Knights, but as the captain, what did you see in the game tonight for your team?
Yeah, I don't know. As you said, a roller coaster, kind of a whirlwind. So a lot of emotions too. So it's kind of hard to look back and kind of even remember what happened. Just typical London game at the Bay Shore. They're always, a treat. A lot of fun to play those guys. Incredibly disappointed that we gave them another win, especially in our building. But I guess we just got to look forward.
Yeah, the way that the team had played, responding early in that game, obviously they wanted to shake things up a little bit. So it's tough with all the injuries that you guys have had this season, and they just keep adding up. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a look at an Attack team really since early October that was fully healthy. Just curious to know how that affect, because the depth on this team was real, but I think guys are starting to get a little bit tired because they're having to cover for so many injuries. What's it like as a player to have to deal with all that, where it seems like you get something going and the next thing another guy's down for a month or two?
Yeah, I think it's just part of it. Like, injuries are part of the game. It's got to be a next man up mentality. I think probably the one that hurts the most is Jacob Tarrant, and we missed him for a while. Obviously, we were just trying to support him, and hopefully we see him back at all would be amazing. And he's a heart and soul guy, playoff experience. He drags guys into the fight, which is maybe a bit of what we're missing, right? And that, that just that heart and soul. But yeah, it's part of it, and then guys got to step up.
You look ahead to Kitchener on Friday night, last game before everybody heads their separate ways for the holiday break. A team that you're not too far behind in the standings right now, so obviously a crucial game coming up on Friday night. How do you prepare for Kitchener?
Just like any other game, but we have to be better, plain and simple, shift by shift. We have preparation. Everything has to be better. We haven't been good enough, and I feel like we keep shooting ourselves with the foot. Whatever it is, bad penalties, I'm obviously guilty of that. Turnovers, whatever it is, but I think we really got to just go out there and have fun and just remember why we play this game is because we love it, and not think going to games thinking, oh, we're on a 5-game losing streak. This is hockey and it's a fun game, and the fans get to come, families get to come together, and we get to brighten their day. So we just got to go out and play the way we know we can, and the wins will come.
I want to ask you a little bit of a lighter, happier question. Christmas, of course, coming up. What's Christmas like in the Bedkowski family? What are you looking forward to most with the break?
Yeah, I got a small family. It's really just me and my mom, my dad, and the dog. So just getting to spend time with them at home. I think just really got to remind myself to be in the moment, not think about coming back. Obviously, try to move around and not be too gluttonous, but just soak it all in and enjoy the time I get back home with my family.
Nice to see the smile on your face again, so I'm going to ask you one more fun question. Favorite Christmas movies? What are you looking forward to watching when you get home?
Probably Trailer Park Boys, the Christmas edition. Yeah.
Nice. Mm-hmm. That is a great answer. David, best of luck with you and your teammates in Kitchener on Friday, and Merry Christmas to you and your family. Enjoy the break.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we got the Media Room Roundtable together one final time before the Christmas break, and we had a few different things to talk about, including potential coaching changes. That is one of the rumors that's been brought up online this past week. So we asked our Media Room experts a little bit about their thoughts on that and some of the other things happening with the Owen Sound Attack. Here's myself, along with Greg Cowan, Matt Hermiz, Spencer Byers, and Michael Harris, the Media Room Roundtable from before the game against London on Wednesday at the Bayshore. All right, Media Room Roundtable, we get together for the last home game before the Christmas break against the London Knights on Wednesday night. And we've got Michael Harris subbing in tonight for Mark McKelvey, who's back from Australia, I believe, this week. But in the meantime, guys, let's start with a road trip to Northern Ontario did not go well for the Owen Sound Attack. The injury bug continues to bite, with Max DeLille now being out probably month to month is what we're hearing. Noah Nelson, same boat. This is not great news. Does this change anything with this team? All of a sudden now you've got long-term injuries mounting. You've got guys that you have no idea when you might see them again, like Jacob Tarrant. Is this a changing of the course officially, or do they just have to hold course?
I mean, I think the answer is probably change course, and I think it's going from, I'll say, going from a team that you'd hope would add at the deadline to maybe a team that's going to have to move some pieces, and that's Carter George. I think we're all probably going to speculate on that as we get closer and closer to January 10th when the OHL trade deadline does come across. But I'm not going to speculate on Carter George just yet. I want to see how the World Juniors performs. Obviously, we're all cheering for him in Team Canada, but yeah, I think it has to change things because, again, Mason Ray out. Jacob Therrien's been out basically all season. He's played, 5 games this year for the Owen Sound Attack. You now lose Max DeLille. You lose Noah Nelson. That's 2 more centers you can't really afford to lose. So, yeah, the injuries mounting, and they've been mounting all season. Like, they've lost, how many guys to injuries or 1 or 2 game suspensions that, we've never seen a full-strength Owen Sound team. When we may not at this point. We may never see a full-strength Owen Sound team with just the way the injuries have been kind of playing out.
Yeah, and it likely is a change course, unfortunately. You see Blake Munnings being used at forward, of course, was brought in as a defenseman, but he has scored playing forward this year. And Ethan Kindry drawing back into the lineup, being used, an experienced OHL player, but not someone they wanted to count on this year. And I assume based on his playing time, he won't be counted on necessarily, but he's got to fill a roster spot. And I just don't see how they can keep up with all these injuries. It's too many people to replace to go out and start grabbing players to make up for that many absences.
I'm not of the opinion that the 2 latest injuries, I don't think the Attack are going to be reactionary and the general manager will make decisions on whether or not he decides to add or not add to this group based on that, but more so on what he thinks about his team's chances of competing this year. That's the decision Dale DeGray is going to have to make in the coming weeks if he hasn't already. So we're all aware, and I don't want to get into too much speculation, but if the decision is to focus on later years, and that likely means that there'll be a change to the crease in Owen Sound come the new year. But I don't think that because of these latest 2 injuries that you need to be reactionary. Mason Ray, we know, is coming back after Christmas. There is a possibility that Jacob Therrien could still contribute to this Attack lineup later this season. And as for the latest 2 injuries, yes, not good what happened to Noah Nelson in Sault Ste. Marie, and also Max DeLille. That was a tough collision to watch into the boards against the Greyhounds, and you get the sense from what Scott Ray has said publicly, it's going to be some time for both those players, but I don't really think that being reactionary and changing the course of your season because of those 2 injuries is the way they'll go. The reality is for the Owen Sound Attack, despite the recent struggles, despite the injuries that are mounting for them, they're still 4 points back of the division lead. One of the Kitchener Rangers, Owen Sound Attack, and London Knights is going to win the Midwest Division this season. I know that those other 2 teams have games in hand on the Attack, but if you're an optimist and somebody who thinks about the bigger picture in the Midwest, it's hard to find a season where it's a better time to go for it. The London Knights are in a transition year after going to back-to-back Memorial Cups and winning the OHL twice. Doesn't happen too often where the London Knights are a bit vulnerable in the division. So in a sense, it's more open than it has been in recent years. I'm not saying that justifies pushing your chips in if you're the Attack, but it's certainly something to consider. So I think there's a lot of decisions that Dale's going to have to make for the future of this team in the next few weeks, and I could see it going either way.
My thoughts this time of year is the biggest thing that's going to determine the future of that team is those guys in the locker room right now. This time of year, I'm always reminded of that story with the Uruguayan rugby team crashed in the Andes, the cannibal rugby team. Not that they're going to turn into cannibals. I'm not saying that.
It's a great movie.
That's not this team. But there's a moment in that story where they have a radio signal, and they get the 2 of the captain and another player get the news that the search has been called off. They hear it over the radio. We can't find these guys. And they debate, are they going to tell the team whether the search has been called off or let them have hope that somebody's going to come to find them. And they decide to tell them that the search has been called off, so now they know what they have to do. At this time of year, you can look for help. Who are we going to trade for? Who are we going to get? Who's going to come and save this season? Or you can look within and say to yourself, how are we going to get off this mountain? How are we going to get to the playoffs? And I think that's, if I'm in that locker room right now, that should be the message. So that story always resonates with me at this time of year when it's trade deadline. You can look who's going to come and save us, or you can look within yourselves and say, we got to start playing better. This group in here, injuries, and whatnot. So don't be cannibals. Just get off the mountain, or do what it takes.
I agree with you, Greg, and it's a good story. But ultimately, we know, like shifting away from that teams in the OHL that make additions around this time of year are the teams that compete. So, lovely story about cannibalism, but
The moral of that story is you got to pay to play in May.
you know what? That's a brilliant rhyme some guy here shared before, and I'm glad it has stood the test of time to this point.
The exact antithesis of the story. All right, from the top, let's go, guys.
All right, next question. If the five of us were on a plane that crashes in the Andes, who gets eaten? Never mind.
Yeah.
I know it's me. Okay, here's on a more serious note, with everything that's been going on as of late, and Greg, you had it in your column today, I think it was, where you talked about the team being a lot of different things, like being the second highest scoring team, but also the team that's allowed the most amount of goals, being the best power play, but one of the worst penalty kills. It's just... They're in both directions in so many statistical categories. The injuries haven't helped, but I've started to see some of the comments online have now started to focus their attention a little bit on the coaching staff. And in particular for Greg and Matt, you guys talk to Scott Ray very frequently, both of you. Matt, I think you talk to him every game. Twice. And I only talk to him about every 3 weeks because we rotate the coaches on the podcast. So maybe you have a bit of a better sense, but do you kind of get a sense from him? And trust me, I wouldn't want to sit it across this guy from a poker table because I can't read him.
Yeah.
But do you kind of feel like maybe he's starting to feel a bit of pressure because the team's not doing well? And
I don't. I'll just answer that straight up. I don't feel that at all. I don't think that Scott Ray worries about that a little, like, at all in his day-to-day. I think that I had a poke at Greg's story as well, where Scott essentially publicly challenged his leadership group to do more, and that is kind of the sense that I get from the Attack head coach right now, is that he knows, as a former player himself, that coaches be darned, no matter what they do, it's up to the players in the room and on the ice. And hey, Greg, maybe I am giving a bit of a credibility now to your story on cannibalism. This is where I'm going with this thought, but ultimately the coach knows that it's up to the players to figure this out themselves. They're the ones that are in the battle. The coaches can help prepare them. The coaches can teach them the systems they want them to play, but it's the players who have to perform. The players that are the ones that are in between periods talking to one another, picking each other up, getting through the bumps and bruises together, going through the ups and downs and the emotions of the war that is a hockey game. So I don't get a sense at all that – I haven't read into the online commentary you're referring to, JC, but I don't think that that the head coach of the Owen Sound Attack is worried about any of that.
I wonder, I'm going to flip it a little bit, and this doesn't ever seem to be out there, but Dale DeGray's been here a long time. Right, and so is it the coach that feels the pressure? There was a lot of turnover on this team on the roster in the off season. A lot of new players brought in. Guys, is the norm in junior hockey, but a lot more than normal. With all the different rule changes, NCAA, and that factored in. But as Matt alluded to, you can only coach the players you've got, and injuries. That's you can't plan for that sort of thing too. But it's the players that the coach has to work with, and. Is it Dale DeGray that feels a little bit of pressure, and either we're making a bunch of moves right now to go for it, or it's another season where you sell off or you stand pat? But it could be the front office that maybe has to take a look in the mirror and say we might have messed up in some player decisions.
I think a big key, though, is that this coaching staff is really young. Like, Coach Ray's in, his second season as a head coach. Both assistants are in their second years as full-time assistants at this level. So it's not like the Attack have a very veteran group of coaches, which it has its positives and its negatives. Like, they don't have a track record where you can look at and say they've had successes places, but they also don't have a lot of biases. They get to grow and get to evolve with all these young guys, too. So, I've had a lot of chances to talk to, I'll say, Nick Kennedy about some of the things with this young coaching group and just, some of the things that are going to be inevitable with having young coaches and young players. So, no, it's been great. I think with those three guys, and I think they're going to continue to grow. And if they have growing pains, that's, I think, to be expected.
I think a lot of this conversation is the conversation that occurs around losing. And the reality is that the Attack have been in a tough stretch, right? They've lost 4 in a row. And if you look back really to mid-October, I did the numbers earlier. I think it's 8 wins and 14 losses since mid-October. They beat the Guelph Storm on a Friday night. Then Guelph came in here the following night in the rivalry series game and beat the Attack inside the Bayshore. So the 9-2 game was the Friday night win in Guelph in mid-October, and then since then they've been a sub-500 team. So that's the reality of the last 2 months for the Owen Sound Attack. So can it change? Sure. They were 9-2 and it changed. And if you recall the conversations we were having then, it was all smiles, and there was certain people around this table like just begging others to make a outlandish prediction about how great this team's going to be and how things are going to go. But you don't know how a season's going to unfold, and that's just the reality of the Ontario Hockey League. So again, and I don't know where it'll go from here, but I do believe that the second half, post-Jan 10, the teams that tend to rise to the top are the teams that add more talent to their lineup. So that's the decision the GM wants to make, if he wants to do that this season with this group when they have the goaltender they have, who's right now off with Team Canada at the World Junior Camp, or if he wants to wait for another day and just tweak his lineup in other ways.
I'll just say, because I saw the same comments you saw, I'm on HF boards every day. And
writing the comments.
He's got a burner, doesn't he?
But I'll just say, it's a short turnaround, right? Because I remember just over 14 months ago, all the fans are talking about, what a great coaching staff. Look how much they're using the clipboards and teaching. It's so great. And even at the beginning of this season when the team was really hot. So I think that's just the job you sign up for when you're a coach and you're making tons and tons and tons of money. You're gonna take that criticism. And whether the teams, and you're gonna get it when the team's riding high, you're gonna get the pat on the back, and when the team's losing, you're gonna get the kick in the shins. So, I mean, I don't think if you can be a coach or a GM and make it this far without knowing that and without developing a bit of a thick skin. So, I don't think it's an issue in terms of no one's gonna be crying in the corner.
Well, and to Matt's point with, how OHL season, now there's ebbs and flows in every sporting season. Last year, this Attack team was pretty bad through the first half, and then really started picking it up in the second half, and that's how they made the playoffs and got the 8th seed in the Western Conference.
13-9, ballparking. I might be a little off, Greg. It can go in the paper, though. It's accurate enough. 13-9. 13-9 or so in the last 2 months in that playoff push.
Yeah,
so you never know.
So they could easily turn around again and kind of figure it out one more time. So that's where I do have some faith, and my optimism does kind of peak up a little bit of, hey, this team had its struggles last year in the first half. Obviously, they had a lot hotter start this year than last, but in the second half, they really cleaned it up, and I have faith they can do that again.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty in the optimistic group as well. Show me a half season with no injuries, and what will the record be compared to now? And I think it's going to be a lot different. And, I mean, for those that are calling for the coach to go, for the GM to go, you have to remember the grass is not always greener on the other side in junior hockey. Yeah. And the talented people do not last long in this league because they go up. Yeah. And everybody else kind of stays and drifts around a little bit, and you're going to have successes come and go. But when you find good people, and I think we got good people, it's better to hang on to them longer because you might not like what comes in next.
I just want to tail onto this, too, and I think it's a discussion we maybe haven't had enough yet about this Owen Sound Attack team this season. The reality is that this is still a very young and inexperienced team. It's not a team that's fraught with 20 and 19-year-olds, especially with their injuries. There's no established import players on the roster. They're a team that is, all that to say, it's not surprising that they're going through tough stretch in this that they are right now, because really the OHL is a league that generally the team with the best 19 and 20-year-olds tend to have the most success. Now, Greg's over there with his games of experience played stat, getting ready to dunk off the top rope on me, but I wasn't
going to mention it. I got more class than that.
The top, some of the higher talent players on the Owen Sound Attack. We're talking about Pierce Bowie, talking about guys like Cole Zarowski, Tristan DeLille's an 18-year-old, Harry Nancy's an 18-year-old. I don't want to not include everyone here, but there's the younger guys are the guys that are sort of seen as the most talented players on this group, and they're dealing with injuries, and they're not a team that's really loaded with 19-year-olds that are there to help pull them through this stretch. Ready, Greg?
No, I agree with everything you said.
But their defense, Lenny Greenberg's not young. Braden Rogers isn't young.
That's another point, though.
Bedkowski's
Lenny
not young.
Greenberg's not young, but he's still just in his second year in the OHL. John Banks is not young, but he's only in his first year. Nick Sikora is not a 16-year-old, but he's still an OHL first-year player. So that's what I'm getting at with inexperience, and it's not an excuse for the Attack. It's just a point about this team that maybe everyone hasn't really thought about enough to reflect on the fact that there's still quite inexperienced, and there's still many players on the roster that are still learning the league and still getting more comfortable in the Ontario Hockey League.
And I think Lenny's a great point because he's technically a second-year player, but how many games he played last year? He only got brought in January?
Right.
So he's only played a season and a half, really. So that also adds to your point, Matt, of it's a lot of new guys to the OHL and a lot of new guys to Owen Sound, so they all got to figure out how to play with each other. And when injuries come in and now guys are moving around and no one can get used to each other, that compounds the problem.
Join us next week on another episode of Excuses.
Great.
Well,
that's why I don't read the paper.
See, we're off base, and then we're signing Doomsday again. Let's move on, JC. Come on.
I appreciate you guys pulling back the layers a bit on some of the problems. And with that, we should probably wrap up because I know Matt and Greg have a pregame show to do on radio.
Holy
the rest
smokes.
of us are on TV tonight. And sorry, what was that?
We're running hot here, JC. Let's go.
Let's go. Guys, I do appreciate all your time, and I do want to say, because this is the last game before Christmas, Merry Christmas to all of you. I won't wish you a Happy New Year yet because we still have another game before then, so we'll reconvene back here when the Brantford Bulldogs are in town. And otherwise, safe travels wherever you go. Just don't fly over the Andes, anybody, okay?
Good advice.
Especially if
Thank you,
Greg
JC.
Cowan's on board.
Well, we are almost done for this week, but before we wrap up, because it is a bit of a shorter episode, I thought this might be a good time to talk a little bit about the podcast and kind of where it started, where it's come from, and where it might be going in the future. This podcast, of course, just started last season, at the beginning of last season, and I wasn't really sure where it was going to go or what the format was going to be, so it was very much kind of stumbling through and trying to figure it out as I went along, and also kind of at the same time hoping that people would actually listen to it. As it turns out, a lot of you do listen to it, and I am very surprised and very grateful at the same time that that people actually enjoy and listen to this podcast on a weekly basis. I can't thank you enough for all the support. You might have noticed, if you've been here since day one, some of the changes that have happened to the podcast over the last year. For example, when it started, it was just an audio-only podcast. It was a true podcast. I didn't want the hassle of having to haul around tripods and cameras, and then eventually I figured out it wouldn't be that hard to do both. So last year, right about this time a year ago, we started adding video into it. So there now is a full video version of the podcast, same as you're hearing, just with the video. And that's all found on our YouTube channel and also airs on Rogers TV Grey County. Thanks so much to Pat and Mark for all of their help with that. Also, last year, you probably noticed we did a lot of media interviews, talking to all of the out-of-town media from all the different teams, whether it was radio or television. Part of the reason for that was because I really like other media people, and there are some fantastic, really nice people in the Ontario Hockey League. So I wanted a chance to kind of get to know them more. But I also wanted you to be able to get to know them more as well, because sometimes I do read comments about the other broadcasters, and I thought, well, if you know them better as a person, you might like them a little bit more like I do. So that was kind of the hope last year with all the media interviews, was kind of a chance to get to know everybody who is around the league. I kind of feel like I've checked most of the boxes for people to talk to with the teams. There are still a few that are left on the list that I will hopefully get to this season on the podcast. But we will still do some of those out-of-town media interviews moving forward, just not necessarily on a weekly basis. Also, the Media Room Roundtable did not exist at the very start of this, mostly because I wasn't sure if the other guys would want to do something like that before every game when we're actually sitting in the media room and it's quite full in there and it can be quite noisy. Would they want to talk to me about the Owen Sound Attack? And as it turns out, Matt and Mark and Greg and Spencer And last year, Adrian were more than willing and gracious with their time. And now it's something that I think we look forward to every week on a weekly basis, doing the Media Room Roundtable. And I also think it's really cool to get those 5 different viewpoints all together, because we all kind of see this team differently. And I think it's good to get those perspectives out there. So the Media Room Roundtable, definitely a feature that will remain moving forward. There's also, I've started to put some little Easter eggs in the podcast, and I'm not sure if anybody has noticed that or not, but the titles of the podcast on a weekly basis, there's usually some sort of a theme that goes along with the theme of the week, and sometimes it's an old saying or something, but I try to tie in the title with what the overall theme of that week's podcast is. And that's also evolved into including a song, because on Instagram, when I post that the episode is out and I post the episode lineup, you can attach a song to that. So there's kind of an Easter egg message in the song choices as well. Sometimes it's pretty light, sometimes it's a little deeper, but it's not overly complicated. But those are just some little Easter eggs I like to sprinkle into the podcast on a weekly basis. Next year, too, we're going to be trying to do more interviews with professional players and professional media. So there is a list I have of folks I would like to talk to. I won't name them here, but you'll get to hopefully meet them at some point. I've been back and forth with a number of NHL players and their teams, a number of professional media as well that cover the NHL and are well-known voices and people, and it's just a matter of getting the scheduling to line up. So that is something we're working on for 2026 as this podcast continues. Another thing that we're working on, and this was actually an idea Mark McKelvey had last year, I wasn't completely sure of how it might work, and I also wasn't completely sure of the interest level in the podcast, but we might try to do a live podcast recording of the Media Room Roundtable coming up in 2026, in early 2026. We're working on some of the details. Scheduling is one of the biggest things we're working on as well, but talking to the Owen Sound Attack, they are up for it. I just got to make sure the guys are up for it as well, and we will pick a date and invite you to be part of it, a live recording of the Media Room Roundtable at the Bay Shore before an Attack game in 2026, before the end of this season. So stay tuned for more details on that. We don't have them locked up yet, but we are working on them. The other thing, too, I'm always looking for more ideas. If there's a feature or something that you would like to hear on the podcast, do let me know. The one thing we don't do a lot of, and I think it's only happened twice, is opposing player interviews. Last year we talked to Jackson Parsons, the then Kitchener Rangers goalie, right after it was announced he was the first player from the all of Canadian Hockey League to depart for the NCAA under the new rules. He's not there. He's not playing with the NCAA, but it was big news at the time. So I talked to Jackson Parsons because we had him right away. They were playing here at the Bay Shore. I think I had Ethan Belchez as well. And those have been the only 2 opposing player interviews that we've had. Might try to do some more of that, but let me know your thoughts on that if you'd like to hear more from the opposing players, especially some of the star players or the top NHL prospects. If you're interested to learn more about them, we'll try to get some of their interviews on in the new year as well. But any other ideas you might have, always happy to hear about them. Any criticism as well is always welcome, and we do appreciate your feedback. Wherever you listen to this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave that feedback as well. You can always email. The email link and everything is within the show notes of the podcast. So I do appreciate, as we head towards the end of the year and into Christmas, I do want to say a big thank you to everyone for supporting this podcast for the last season and a half up to this point. Looking forward to a lot of big things in 2026. And again, thank you so much to all of our guests this year, the coaching staff, the players, our media room buddies who have done so much to be a part of this and contribute to it. It is very much appreciated from the bottom of my heart. I hope that you and your family have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we here at the Bear Tracker Podcast are looking forward to great things again in 2026. Cheers.
The Bear Tracker podcast is produced in association with Blackburn Media from the CKNX studios in Wingham, Ontario. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe at Bear Tracker Pod on social media and wherever you get your podcasts.